Dear students, so since last two lectures we have been discussing honeybee and apiculture, and in continuation to the same, today also we would be continuing the same, that is honeybee and apiculture. As so when we talk about the apiary management, there are certain prerequisites, that is pre-requirements, when we select to take up apiary or apiculture. And these prerequisites is: number one, knowledge or training on beekeeping is essential. So if you have a complete knowledge, and how can you get a complete knowledge? It is of course through training on beekeeping. Then the second most important thing is that one must know and one must have a detailed knowledge about the local bee flora. So knowledge on local bee flora is important aspect. You should know what kind of which honeybee species is present in your area, or in that particular area where you want to take up the beekeeping or where you want to establish apiary. Sufficient information on local bee flora, that is the same thing, but yes, in all overall the detailed information pertaining to that particular bee flora is very important. And if necessary, one must practice migratory beekeeping, that too is important. Apiary site requirements: the site should be dry without dampness, because high relative humidity will affect bee flight and ripening of nectar. Water, that is the natural source, or it can be provided artificially, so one needs that is water available in sufficient amount there. Wind breaks: now trees serve as wind belts in cool areas. Shade: hives can be kept under shades of tree. Artificial structures can also be constructed because shade is essential for apiary management. Bee pasturage or florage, that is plants that yield pollen or nectar to bees, are called bee pasturage or florage, and they should be in good number because the bee would be fetching the or collecting pollen or nectar from these plants. So the preferred plants should be present at the near the site where we have want to establish the apiary or where we want to establish the apiculture setup. Expanding brood net is done by providing comb foundation sheet in empty frame during honey flow period, and sugar syrup feeding can also be done. Sugar dissolved in water at 1:1 dilution. It is used to feed bees during dearth period when there is no pollen or nectar available from the surrounding, from the natural resources, that is the flowers. Then a sugar syrup is artificially fed to these bees so that the honey is not reduced in the hive. General apiary management practices. What one should take care of, what one should do when one establishes an apiary is that number one is hive inspection. So an individual who is going in for apiculture, the hives, that bee hive which has been constructed by the honeybee, their timely inspection is very essential. So opening the hive at least twice a week and inspecting for the following details. Now what one should inspect once you visit the hive is that presence of queen. Is the queen there? Because if there is no queen, there is no egg laying, then the nest or the hive is of no use. Presence of eggs and brood, one should check in whether yes, the eggs and the brood are being properly laid and brought up. Honey and pollen storage is being done in a proper condition. Hive record to be maintained for each hive, and presence of bee enemies like wax moth, mite, disease in that particular area should be checked whether these are not there, because if these are present then they would damage the hive, and if the hive is damaged, then why are we constructing the hive? To collect the honey and wax, so all these would also be damaged. So the presence of enemies has to be checked from time to time. So hive inspection should be done. Supering or addition of frames in super chamber. This is done when brood chamber is filled with bees on all frames are covered and comb foundation sheet or constructed comb provided in super chamber. Honey extraction. Bee escape board is kept between brood and super chamber. Bees brushed away using a brush. These are brushed away using the brush, and cells uncapped using uncapping knife. Honey is extracted using honey extractor, and combs are replaced in hive for reuse. Swarm management. Removing brood frame from strong colony and provide to weak. So the uh, broods swarm management is, when you see that in a particular hive there are weak individuals in a particular colony, then what we do can be done is that brood frames from strong colony are replaced where the brood is weak. Pinch off the queen cells during inspection, divide strong colonies into 2 or 3 and trap an hive primary swarm. Uniting bee colonies is done by newspaper method. Bring colonies side by moving 30 centimeter per day. Remove queen from weak colony. Keep a newspaper on top brood chamber of queen. Make holes on the paper. Keep queenless colony on top. Close hive entrance and then unite bees to the brood chamber and make it one colony. So the bee colonies are also united to make a one big colony. Seasonal management. Pollen and nectar available only during certain period, we know that. Honey flow season, that is surplus food source, into dearth period, that is when there is a scarcity of food. So one has to manage when there is surplus, in which season there is surplus food, and when there is less of food, that is dearth period. Extremes in climate like summer, winter and monsoon need specific management tactics, which we'll discuss. Honey flow season management coincides with spring. Provide more space for honey storage by giving CFS or built combs. Confine queen to brood chamber using queen excluder. Prevent swarming. Prior to honey flow, provide sugar syrup and build sufficient population. Divide strong colonies into 2 or 3 colonies if colony multiplication is needed. Queen rearing technique may be followed to produce new queens for new colonies. Summer management. Bees have to survive intense heat and dearth period. During summer, this is the situation when there are less of flowers, because in winters they have plenty of flowers, and therefore there is no scarcity of pollen and honey. But during the summer season, because their vegetation is less, then that is termed as a dearth period. Provide sufficient shade under trees or artificial structure. To increase relative humidity and reduce heat, sprinkle water twice a day on gunny bag or rice straw and put on the hive. Increase ventilation by introducing a splinter between brood and super chamber. Provide sugar syrup, pollen supplement and substitute of and water. Winter management. Maintain strong and disease-free colonies. Provide new queen to the hives. Winter packing in cooler areas, especially if we talk about the hilly areas. Management during the dearth period would be remove empty combs and store in airtight container. Use dummy division board to confine bees to small area. Unite weak colonies so that then there is a one big colony, and then maybe the outcome or the honey production and the wax production is more. Provide sugar syrup, pollen supplement or substitute. During rainy season or monsoon season management, avoid dampness in apiary site because this would result in more fungus and diseases. Provide proper drainage. In rain, when bees are confined to the hive, provide sugar syrup feeding. So this is all about apiary management practices. Thank you.